Hello, thank you for watching my overview of Fire and Rain by James Vernon Taylor. So to start, James Vernon Taylor, also known as James Taylor or JT or String Bean, was born into a wealthy family in Boston, Massachusetts. He was born on March 12, 1948, and only lived there until he was about 3 when his family and him moved to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He started playing the guitar around age 12, so his years active were 66 officially until present day. He had 3 brothers and 1 sister, his most notable brother being Livingston Taylor, and the others not growing to be as big as James or Livingston. However, they were musically talented, and his mother studied the cello, so there was a family of musicians being brewed up here with James. It was in his teenage years, and he attended Milton Academy until he pulled himself out because of drugs and psychiatric problems. So he admitted himself into the McLean Psychiatric Hospital in Massachusetts, and right now this is year 1965. So this is where he developed his skills and got his career going, making the best out of what the current situation he had was. And then after leaving the hospital 1 year after, he helped form a band known as the Flying Machine, and things didn't work out well with them, blah 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 blah. They break up, and he gets inspired to move to London. So now here in London, he signs with the Beatles' Apple record label, and back then this is big because albums were everything, and more today it's like there's albums and we pick our favorite couple songs and add it to a playlist, but that's not as big as what it used to be. And then so his debut album with this new company was James Taylor. That's the name of the album, and it was rated well by the critics but didn't sell well at all compared to what the ratings were. So then in 1969, Taylor returned to the U.S., but again he has a drug addiction, so he checked himself into another hospital, this one being in New York, and then he later found himself at the Austin Riggs Psychiatric Facility in Massachusetts, where he was born. Later that year, in 1969, he bounced back, sort of, and played at the 1969 Newport Folk Festival, which was in Rhode Island. Moving on from here, he then moved to California and made a second album, this one being called Sweet Baby James, which holds the hit called Fire and Rain, which I will be analyzing later in this video. But this album is not with the Beatles' Apple record label, it's now with the Warner Brothers. Later on, he marries Carly Simon, which doesn't end up well, or his next 2 wives, which we'll talk about later. But then in 1977, he signs with Columbia Records. And then later that year, he always talks about this in interviews, and it's often brought up in songs and stuff, is his encounter with Mark David Chapman, who we know later killed John Lennon just 24 hours after him and James Taylor were talking. He says it's surreal to experience, I have a quote right here, it says, "It's surreal to have actually come in contact with the guy 24 hours before he shot John." And we see this often in his songs and whatnot, and that obviously has a huge impact on him to who he turned out to be. And then more times go on, blah blah blah. It's 1981 now, and Carly Simon and him end their marriage. And then while we're on it, marriages don't end well with him. He had 2 more, one being with Catherine Walker, and now he's currently with Carolyn Smedvig, which was in 2001.